story while I have the chance. This is Crow. You haven't seen it, but I went into Stripes, the little corner store down the block, and the guy that runs it, Crow used to work for him about 5 years ago, I guess. So his name is Ken, the guy that's at the Stripes, the manager, I guess. But as I walked in, I got my cigarettes and all, and he says, "Have you seen Shannon?" I said, "Yeah, I see him." I said, "We call him Crow." He says, "Yeah, I know." He said, "Tell him to come see me." Thinking, oh, I said, look, as soon as that he had a job for Crow. So sure enough, I ran right when I came up to Timmins, 5-10 minutes after, I ran into Crow. I normally don't always see him up here. So it was ordained. I said, "Crow," I said, "you know, your ex-boss told me come talk to him." And, "Really, John?" I said, "Yes." So he walked down there, but then there was an incident where somebody was going to get in a fight with my friend Crow, and he says, "I'm just here going to apply for a job," and then so it kind of got a little derailed, but the person's supposed to be here in a minute. I don't want to catch it on video, but I wanted to tell that I felt it was interesting how that worked out. Tell something, Crow, share. You used to work for Ken many years ago.
Yes, I did. I worked for Stripes for 2 years, 2.5 years, 7 days a week, and it was in the apex of Stripes. I made more money in the 2 years there than the 14 years of Circle K. So I kind of retired from that business, and so it's kind of strange that he would be asking for me like
and
that.
He brought it up on, like I said, I just walked in. I don't talk very much to Ken, you know. He knows I know you. So he asked me. I said, "Yes." I said, "I know Crow. I know Shannon. I'll tell him." I like the way it worked out. I'm going to put Crow on the spot. I'm going to do this with somebody else. I'm going to title this Crow Nation. I'm serious. I'm not stealing your idea. But I told Crow he wants to start doing videos, and he kind of wants to call it Crow Nation, talk about issues and all. You know what I wanted? You mentioned it a few weeks ago, and I thought this testimony would be good if you want to tell it. But you brought up a few weeks ago, you did how many months in solitary confinement, Crow?
Oh, God, yeah.
A year? Let me ask you, and I watch a lot of the shows that, and a lot of my friends have done time in prison, even before I came to Flower Bluff. That's how our little church started. But let me ask you, the time you had 20, you were mentioning, and I remembered it, you did you got to be in the room 23 hours a day, and then you get...
Oh, it was 24 hours.
Oh, okay. Tell me how you went through that period of just sitting in solitary. What was, how do you survive being isolated like that?
Well, the one I was in, there's solitary confinement, and then there's solitary confinement. And this one was 4 stories underground, and you had no clothes. And these were the people that the state of Texas took from other states. They couldn't handle and moved them in. So it was a lot of people that...
He's looking for Gabriel.
Gabriel, yes. But it was...
I know Gabriel.
You know Gabriel?
I haven't seen him in a couple weeks, actually. I'll give him a message if you want. You want me to tell him?
Wait a minute, stop. You haven't seen him in a couple days?
Maybe, I don't know. I might have seen him a week ago. I see him every so often.
Okay. I'm not, it's no problem. I was just worried about him.
Oh, no. He's doing some work for a friend of mine, and I think he's still doing some work for a friend of mine. And yes, and I think he's putting them up for this couple of weeks, possibly. But the time, how do you mentally survive when you're sitting in solitary? That's kind of how.
Yeah, because it was a very strange time there. Like I said, this was the worst of the worst. And then also, it was one of the few places that was the security was strong enough to where they're moving women overnight. So it was a very strange mixture. And one of the guys, kids, he'd been in there since he was like 12 years old. He was about maybe 18 at the time. He called me Jesus Christ, because he had a headache, and I told him how to get rid of it, and it worked. So after that, he called me Jesus Christ. So it's very strange. it was something that was unexpected. You know, usually that type of thing, you have forewarning that it's coming and such.
Yeah.
But in my case, there was no warning of any kind. So I just had to deal with it on a day-to-day basis. Actually, 5 months of it I spent not eating. And
Oh, I think you told me, as a matter of fact, now I'm remembering a few years ago when I first met you, you told me about that part of it, yes?
yeah, and I didn't start off saying, well, I'm going to go 5 months without eating. I just it happened. It was like everything there, it just happened. And there were a lot of things in there that just happened, and some of them were pretty bad, and I was proud of them at the time. And, you know, time goes by and you realize there's nothing to be proud of and such, and so it was an experience. I really didn't think a place like that existed in the state of Texas. But yeah,
and you had a guy and the other also in solitary, but you talked to him, but you never seen him until one time you were saying you guys, they bred everybody out, and you said, oh, he was different than you know, because you don't see somebody if you're getting to talk, you know.
Yeah, that was a very popular local guy, yes. And yeah, he was a big dude. He's a good friend, but I haven't seen him since then. That was, yeah, solitary. Plus they had like bird cages where they kept really, really, really nasty people. And it was just, every single person there was a lesson in one way or another if you looked at it, you know. And that's the way I looked at it.
Yeah.
And while I was there, you know, anytime you were moved to see the doctor, for whatever reason, I mean, you were taking a shotgun, you know, literally a shotgun, and like I said, you didn't get a stitch of clothing on until you left the place.
Yeah.
So it was very
it's
humiliating.
Dehumanizing, and they kind of like, that's the whole question about, you know, people have talked about our prison system in the U.S. and whether or not we understand. Furman brings up every now and then when he was doing time, and they had like a little Christian fellowship, and some of the guys would say, we're believing God to get us out, and Furman would kind of rebuke them and say, look, we're paying our debt, but God's going to work in our lives still. But then the other side of the coin, though, is if it's strictly, is there a process of rehabilitation, you know, or is it simply retribution? And so these are questions that Christians have had. Chuck Colson, who passed away, but he did a famous prison ministry. He was a guy that was involved in the Nixon Watergate scandals, Chuck Colson, and then he became a Christian when he was in jail. And then he started a big prison ministry, and so people question whether or not, you know, there's problems in the system. I'm sure you're aware of that.
Yeah.
This is going to be titled Crow Nation, and the reason I'm saying that is, I told Crow because he had the idea. He wasn't sure how, but when you tell your testimony, like this is just a little example. That's part of what God will use you for. You see, and people will get to see the process. As a matter of fact, Crow's former boss, Ken, who I told you I ran into him at the Stripes, but he even mentioned to me, he said, you know, Crow, he brought this up, I didn't even tell Crow, he said, you know, Crow has made a change, you know, kind of from the old days of being on the streets and involved with stuff. And so even Ken mentioned that. And so that's a testimony, but
yeah, that time in solitary, I had some of the best times of my life, believe it or not, and I had some of the absolute worst times of my life. And thank goodness at the time I didn't. I think it was, you know, a lot of it is what you tell yourself to make it through it. You know, then when you get out, then you get to look back on it in reality and see what it really was. You know, but it was the first place that I had actually killed someone. And,
I remember you telling me that.
I was very proud of that at the time because of the nature of the situation.
It was sort of, you know, you die or somebody else dies situation, which is not good to be in, but that's how
it is.
It was ultimately resolved, because when you're in prison and there's people that are getting each other, you know, but you did share that with me. I remember that.
Yeah, and I was so proud of it at the time, but until later on I realized that it was nothing to be proud of. And now it's out here, everything's different. You know, you can get in a fight with someone, and you know, today's the anniversary of Don's death.
Okay, Don is a friend of ours who passed away. Good friend of Claire. I knew Don for many years. He didn't like the nickname, but we used to call him Metalhead. And yeah, Don. Look, Don was. Some of my friends drink, you know, and some have alcohol problems. But Don was one of the real bad. You know, he drank himself. There was other things involved, but like Buck, another friend of ours, some of the real severe alcoholics, they get to a point where you could see, even though Don was beaten, and that still is in question whether they ever fully resolved that whole thing. But okay, how long did that go? I wanted to just do this. The other promise I made was, I said on a previous video, I said I'm going to put Crow on the spot because this is a launching of Crow Nation. I'm going to get Bobby Johnston when I run into Bobby. He'd been saying one day, Guitar Jason brought an avocado under the turnaround and just made the sandwich for. And Bobby's been saying, I'm going to do that for. So I'm going to put him on the spot when they simply did say, I'm going to go pick up some avocados and he says, I want to feed the homeless friends of mine. I said, yes, just do it. Just do it. Sometimes you need to be pushed a little bit. But I'm going to title this Crow Nation, your testimony just on that. That was in my mind. And, you know, we're not perfect, but as we progress, people see the change. And your former boss actually said it on his own, Ken. He said, you know, Crow's, you know, made a change. Shannon, and I said, yes, he has. So it's good for people to see it. And with a final word, this is your, any specific thing you want to say?
Yeah, it's very strange. Today's the 5th. Yesterday was the 4th. The 3rd, I lost my check, my disability SSI. And so now I'm actually able to work. And this hurricane, everything's had me so wiped out. This is the first day I've actually had a chance to go out and look for a job. And it's very strange to just simply walk up to Timmons and then hear what the news you had. And it's kind of hard to believe, you know.
And it happened just like that, too.
Yes, and it's a very good paying job. It would be nice if I got my wages that I was making before. It was $13 an hour.
Yeah.
I don't know that it will or not, but you know, it is what it is, and God has a way of doing things in His own time, and that's the hardest thing is to do things on His schedule. And, but you have to remember that there's no pushing God, and if it's meant to be, it's nothing in the world going to stop it. If it's not meant to be, there's anything in the world that's going to, you know, make it happen. So.
Amen. Amen. All right. God bless everybody, and this is Crow Nation.